In this lecture, we will look at the development of the great Eastern and Western traditions of Christianity. Jesus said, "And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church." A particular reading of this statement of Jesus interprets it to mean that Peter is the appointed leader of the church, and that this appointment applies to not only the historical Peter, but to his successors as well. It follows that the church over which the successors of Peter preside over should be the leader among the churches. The Church of Rome maintained that Peter established it in AD 42 and ministered there as its first bishop until AD 67, the year in which he was martyred. Subsequently, as the church in which the Petrine successor presides over, it also claims the Petrine privilege as the leader of the churches. However, there were also other competing claims. Churches of Jerusalem, Antioch, and Alexandria also had Petrine claim, in the sense that Peter had ministered in Jerusalem and Antioch before his ministry in Rome, while the church at Alexandria was founded by John Mark, a disciple of Peter. When Christianity was made the state religion of the Roman Empire, the church in the capital city, that is the Church of Rome, assumed the whole empire under its jurisdiction. This further bolstered the claim of the Church of Rome as the leader of the churches. However, in AD 330, Roman Emperor Constantine moved his imperial capital from Rome to Constantinople. With this development, the Church of Constantinople also began to consider the whole Roman Empire as under its jurisdiction, and thus claimed prominence over the other churches. In the 7th century, the Muslims conquered and occupied the areas that were under the jurisdiction of the churches of Jerusalem, Antioch, and Alexandria. Consequently, their influence diminished. Thus, the churches in Rome and Constantinople emerged as the two contenders claiming leadership over the churches. The tussle between the two ultimately resulted in what is known as the Great Schism of 1054, that divided Christianity into the Eastern and Western churches. The Church of Constantinople was the imperial church and was closely associated with the political power. The Roman emperors considered themselves as representative of Christ and controlled the church. The close relationship of the church and state meant that the church derived its identity from the state. In regions of the Roman Empire where the imperial role was not popular, like in Syria or Egypt, they were referred to as the Melkites, from Syriac meaning king, for they were the ones obedient to the imperial command. Not everyone in the Roman Empire accepted the leadership of the Church of Constantinople. In the East, most churches in Syria, Egypt, Ethiopia, and Armenia did not submit to the leadership of the Church of Constantinople and are known as the Oriental Orthodox Church. Further east, another group of churches, known as the Nestorians, also refused to subject themselves to the imperial church. They are presently known as the Church of the East. Thus, the churches in the eastern part of the Roman Empire and beyond was divided into three groups, which constitute the three segments of the contemporary Orthodox Church family: the Eastern Orthodox Church, the Oriental Orthodox Church, and the Church of the East. When the imperial capital was shifted from Rome to Constantinople, not only was the Church of Rome no longer overshadowed by the emperor and his court, but also it became the most powerful establishment in the whole of the West. Furthermore, in the 5th century, the city of Rome was ransacked by invaders from the north of the Roman Empire. With this, the Roman Empire in the West basically came to an end. This fall of Rome created a power vacuum. In this context, The Bishop of Rome, or the Pope, became the natural authority to which the whole of the West or Europe looked up to. However, the Pope's claim of primacy goes beyond that over the Western churches. As early as the 2nd century, the Church of Rome had claimed its primacy over the Church Universal based on the Petrine claim. Writing in AD 189, Irenaeus of Lyon, in present-day France, listed a succession of the bishops of Rome, including the immediate successors of Peter and Paul. The first pope to claim primacy over the Church Universal in writing was Pope Stephen I, who in around AD 254 invoked the Petrine claim by using Matthew 16 verse 18 as the proof of his authority over the Church Universal. Pope Leo I is sometimes referred to as the first real pope because of the authority with which he asserted the universal authority of the Pope. In his papal letter entitled Tome of Leo, he claimed that the Apostle Peter continues to speak to the Christian community through his successors as Bishop of Rome by stating that he was speaking with the voice of Peter. This papal assertion of universal authority puts it in collision course with the churches in the East, especially that of Constantinople. In AD 588, John IV, the Patriarch of the Church of Constantinople, adopted the title Ecumenical Patriarch, meaning Universal Father. This enraged the leadership of the Church at Rome. The then Pope, Gregory I, protested John IV's use of the title, saying such a claim is a sign that the Antichrist is near. He further called the said title as a broad and profane title, and equated John IV to the devil himself. Over the years, there was much conflicts between the Eastern and Western churches. The final break between the Eastern and Western churches took place in 1054 after a quarrel between Pope Leo IX and Patriarch Michael Cerularius of Constantinople. After some angry correspondence between the two over various issues on the primacy of the Church, the Pope excommunicated the Patriarch. This was done in a very dramatic incident whereby the Papal Legate entered the Church of St. Sophia in Constantinople and deposited the letter of excommunication in the grand altar, and having shaken off the dust from their feet, departed. The Patriarch retaliated by promptly issuing a comparable deed of excommunication of the Pope. This incident of 1054 is often referred to as the Great Schism. It was the final rupture between the churches of the East and the West. From this time on, both stood apart from each other, claiming to be the true church, and each refusing to recognize the other. The excommunications were lifted only in 1965 when Pope Paul VI and Patriarch Athenagoras I, following their historic meeting in Jerusalem in 1964, presided over simultaneous ceremonies that revoked the excommunication decrees. The irony of the event of the Great Schism is that the ideal of a universal church became the basis for the East and West divide, as each claimed for a position of prominence. At the end, it thrust a wedge between the churches of the East and West, causing a deep wound of distrust and enmity, which is yet to be fully healed.